All right, so we were given a screener by writer-director Danny Stygian. I always called him Daniel, but it goes Danny here. He was gracious enough to not only send me this screener, but answer all sorts of questions I had about what he filmed this on, and he was very forthcoming with all of that. So I appreciate that, Danny, taking the time to tell me about all the stuff you used on this film. That was very cool, and I appreciate it. So, now, this film is about a vlogger named Richard Deakins. No, not the cinematographer. That's a different name. And he is investigating the occult, like black magic. And as he goes down this dark path, it starts to take turns that he was not expecting. You know, of course, when you start screwing around with this stuff, it doesn't go your way, right? It's this doesn't go how you think it's gonna go, says Luke Skywalker. And this guy should have listened. This is reminiscent to a degree. I don't want to say it's a similar movie, but just that premise sort of reminds me a bit of The Possession of Michael King.
I thought so too. Mm-hmm.
Right? Where you're going in and you're just like doing all these different rituals to prove it's BS because you want to prove it is real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, whatever. So as far as this movie goes, I think I'm going to let Kaylee take this one for the most part. I thought this movie was fine. But I think you got more enjoyment out of it because of the accuracy of the occult information within the film. And that's always cool for somebody who's really into something, and for it to be properly shown.
Totally. Yeah, I was really impressed because I feel like, we watch so many horror movies and ones that are supernatural and paranormal, and sometimes, you get little like hints of what is like considered real occult practice, but a lot of the time it's the Hollywood horror version of it. And I was really impressed with like just all of the things with like Aleister Crowley and the Seal of Solomon. Like all of the occult stuff was things that I was familiar with from doing my own research in the past, and I thought that was really cool. I don't know if this director is actually into the occult personally. I mean, I would assume that there is some interest there to make a movie around it, but I would be curious to find out if it was research that was done specifically for the film, or if there's a personal reason or personal interest in it outside of that. But yeah, it was really cool. There's a scene where there's a tarot reading, and it felt like you even remarked on this, a very realistic tarot reading, not just kind of like a hokey psychic spiritualist woman, sort of pulling out these cards and making a grand gesture. It was just a believable person who would have, who would read tarot. So I liked all of that a lot. And even the occult, like the items used in the rituals all looked really genuine, and I think that's really cool. I especially too, there's some scenes in the movie that I thought looked really wonderful, as far as like the lighting and the cinematography. There's some really crisp scenes that I appreciated in this film in particular, so I'd like to mention that.
Yeah. So the whole thing is shot like a vlog, right?
Yeah.
And he is chronicling his delving into this. We start at the end kind of showing where this is all going to eventually end up going, and then we lead our way up to this event that takes place. The problem I think I had with the film was my lack of like connection to the motivation behind the obsession trying to film this occult stuff. I guess I never really got a sense of 100% what was drawing him into doing this and why it was so important for him to do so. So I think that's probably where my disconnect came from. As far as the technical aspects of the film, it's a pretty standard found footage film in that way. You know, they use 3 different kinds of cameras in here, one being far superior to the other one, so you can definitely see the drop of quality between, you know, this shot and that shot. There's also some really off audio issues in certain scenes where I think that they relied on the built-in microphone of their action camera or GoPro camera. When they're doing certain interviews, it's like the audio is, you know, a huge downgrade from the audio in other scenes, and that can be a little distracting, albeit, you know, I guess you could say realistic.
Yeah.
Because this is some vlogger who may not have the best equipment on him, just like the people making this movie. So it might add some form of authenticity, but distorted audio in an interview sequence shouldn't really be a thing, especially if you have already good audio in other interview segments. It's like, where is the standard there that you would bring from one location to the next? As far as the acting goes, I think the acting, you know, it's an amateur film, so the acting in it is as expected amateur. The lead guy is fine. And his fiance is fine, so they're fine, and they lead the majority of the film. You're gonna be with the main guy for probably 90. I think he's probably in every single scene, so he's in 100% of the film.
Yeah.
But he takes the lion's share of screen time alone. I'd say we probably spent 75% of the film with him. So his acting needs to be the best in the film, and it is the best in the film.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna name names here just because I know people who worked on this specifically are going to be watching this, so I'll just let people wonder who I'm referring to. But there was one performance in particular that I thought was horrendously awful, and I actually thought it was a joke at first until I realized it wasn't, and then I was like, oh, whoa, okay, and it actually really took me out of the moment. And was like jarring, because I thought the rest of the acting was at least fine, right?
Yeah,
so it was
it
just
was
kind of like one very glaring bad performance, and then everyone else was fine at worst.
Right. Yeah. It was a weird, kind of a rough performance to say the least. But as you said, like the rest of the performances were fine. So it was just kind of this oddball in there, which, you know, again with amateur film, like, you know, I think people, like everyone can be like hypercritical of amateur films because we have all these, like, you know, big box office, big budget movies that come out. But, you know, when people want to get into acting or get into making film, like, you have to do trial and error, like, you know, and not every role works for you, and it's fine. Like, there's no judgment, you know, in terms of that. There's definitely been, and I feel like I can really relate because, you know, we've started trying to do these, like, kind of short TikToks and stuff, and it's hard.
It is
like
hard.
To just kind of jump into a role, or, you know, even when you practice it, like, it's hard to make things feel real. And especially with found footage, like, you want, you know, we always talk about this, there's something bizarre that happens when you turn the camera on yourself.
Yes.
Right before this video, we were filming our lesser known found footage films part 2, and we were kind of trying to do it scripted at first, and I was fumbling so much, and then I just got in my head about it. So for the rest of the film, like, I was really awkward. And I'm just using that as an example for, you know, like, how easy it is to get in your head and get put off when you're filming.
Especially when you're trying to be natural.
Yes.
That's difficult because people aren't themselves when the camera turns on.
Yeah.
And we all know this from just being around cameras at a party or something, and someone puts a camera on, and then all of a sudden the people you know start to act like people you don't know.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm just filming you. Like, I just want you to be you, but people just can't seem to be themselves. So, like, when someone plays themselves in a movie, I'm always like, that's not as easy as you think it's
not.
Some people are like, oh, how hard is it to be you? Like, oh, wow, Howard Stern played Howard Stern in the Howard Stern movie. And it's like,
it's not
It's
easy.
tough, man. You might think that's easy, but it's tough to be you.
Yes.
I don't think it's tough to be me for me. I don't know how to be anything else but me. I'm kind of always stuck in Jason mode. I'm at work, I'm here, I'm always me. and I don't think anybody ever thinks differently. So I feel like I have a good time with it, but I do understand how easy it is to want to, because you're trying to like pretend you're something bigger or better or whatever.
Well, I
and
think
that's what it is. It's an insecurity. When the camera comes on, you're like, oh my god, I got to be so interesting and funny and over the top, and I gotta make a stand, because this is memory, right? Like, this is something that's gonna be forever. But
well, even more than that, I think it's just like you're aware that there's people watching, you know, and that there's that observer effect where you're just kind of like just thrown off guard from it, you know. And
sure.
but
we
I
should
mean,
probably move on.
We
from
can move
this.
on.
We
We
talked
just,
about
I
that
just,
for
we
too
just
long.
kind of wanted to address it because it was kind of part of the film that we were, as you said, it disconnected us from it. But the rest of the performances are fine, and really, I just appreciate the attention to detail with the occult in this movie, and I would love to see more films like this where they are hyper realistic as far as the occult practices go, because I think that there's a lot of disinformation out there on occult practices, but I also think that the occult practices themselves are fascinating, and there is so much to draw from on, like, in so many different ways, that it kind of baffles me that more people don't try to do that. So yeah, props to that.
So yeah, if you are a found footage fanatic, you are into the occult and you want to see it represented in a more realistic fashion using very proper information that one would find if they were genuinely researching the topic, and you don't mind a more amateur found footage film that doesn't have some huge climatic payoff, and you're just kind of wanting to go along for the occult journey, I definitely think this is one that you should support and check out. I will leave a link below for you to purchase the Blu-ray from Danny himself, if you want to support the film in that way. If not, he said he has the film pending with none other than Tubi.
Yeah.
Because that's where all found footage films go. So hopefully soon enough, it will be streaming somewhere for you guys to support in that way. But other than that, Danny, thank you so much for supplying this screener for us to watch, and hopefully our review wasn't too harsh. I felt like we did a good job
I think
of
we were
balancing
fair, yeah.
our thoughts on it.
Yeah.
And other than that, man, check out the film if that sounds like something you'd be into.
Yeah, definitely. Supporting small filmmakers and indie films is important.
Always. So congratulations, guys.
Congrats.